global warming. And I believe that when it comes to environment, the budget has to be considered that maybe we have to know how to deal with environmental issues. Because I was just saying that this motion, I know it will be referred to the committee. They referred that of Senator Egu to us, and we can't even go anywhere because there is no fund to go. So if it is referred to us, thank God that they didn't say the committee should go to Ebonyi State like his prayer, depicted. I don't think we even have the resources, and I'm also craving the indulgence of Mr. President that they should encourage us to go to all these places to bring report back to the Senate. Thank you, Mr. President.
We'll go to the prayers. Observe 1 minute silence for the repose of the souls of deceased. Those in favor of prayer 1 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2, urge NEMA to, as a matter of urgency, provide relief materials to the affected persons. Those in favor of prayer 2 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 3, urge the Ministry of Power, Works and Housing to direct Yola Electricity Distribution Company DISCO to facilitate the restoration of power supply to Jalingo and its environment. Those in favor of prayer 3 say aye. Those against say nay. Ayes have it. And prayer 4, urge the Nigerian Communication Commission to draw the attention of various service providers on the need to reinforce their masts to withstand rain and windstorm. Those in favor of prayer 4 say aye. Those against say nay. Ayes have it. Let's stand up and observe 1 minute silence, please. May the gentle souls rest in perfect peace. Amen. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the third order of the day is a motion standing in the name of Senator Binta Masi Garba and 8 others on the 2018 Children's Day celebration. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Binta Masi Garba to move the motion.
Senator Binta Masi Garba.
Thank you, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues. Binta Masi Garba, Adamawa North Senatorial Zone of Adamawa State. I want to make a correction since it's a celebration of our children come May 27th. I will want to include that all senators of the 8th Assembly should be co-sponsors of that because it has to do with our children. The Senate knows that the 27th of May each year is observed as Children's Day in Nigeria. The Senate is aware of the significant role of the Nigerian child in the nation's development and the need to lay a good foundation for them and secure their future. The Senate recognizes the importance of developing the Nigerian child through the passage of legislation such as the Child Rights Act 2003, which defines a new child protective system and allows opportunities for the participations of children in the matters that concerns their rights and welfare, which has been adopted and is being implemented in 23 states, including the FCT. Urge the Universal Basic Education Act 2004, which makes the education of the Nigerian child compulsory and enforceable rights, penalties for parents or guardians who fail or neglect this obligation. The Senate notes that a proper system of education and good health care are indispensable towards making the Nigerian child relevant in the global scheme of things. The Senate is worried that infant mortality rate in Nigeria has risen to 1 million deaths per annum as a result of poor nutrition and poor medical facilities. Further worries that Nigeria is the second largest contributor to the under age 5 and maternal mortality rates in the world. The Senate is aware that under the National Health Act 2014, all pregnant women, the elderly, the disabled, and children are to be exempted from paying for services in public hospitals. The Senate is concerned that this is not so practical, as children and pregnant women still pay for medical health in public hospitals, contrary to the express been rendered orphans and widows. The Senate accordingly resolved: 1, to congratulate the Nigerian children on the celebrations of the 2018 Children's Day. 2, to facilitate with the federal governments and families of the Dapchi schoolgirls that have been released. 3, to urge the federal government to intensify effort to secure the release of Lien Shaibu, the only Dapchi schoolgirl that is yet to be released, and the remaining Chibok schoolgirls that are still in the custody of the Boko Haram insurgency. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I so move, or rather we so move. Thank you.
Senator Uzoku.
My name is Rose Oko Crossriver. Mr. President, it is sad to note that several years after the enactment of the Child Rights Act and the Universal Basic Education Act 2004, the welfare of the Nigerian child, the education of the Nigerian child, and the health of the Nigerian child is far from what is desired and desirable. Mr. President, there is no doubt that today, despite the Universal Basic Education Act, we still find too many of our children outside the education sector, outside the school system. While that act prescribes that parents of children who are found not to be in school would be punished, we still find that parents either withdraw their children from school to hawk, to serve as domestic servants, or do not send them to school at all. The Child Rights Act provides for the welfare of the Nigerian child. But today, we find that the Nigerian child is still a basic target for all sorts of violence. There is violence in terms of they are the target of kidnapping in the society, as we have seen in the case of the Dapchi schoolgirls and the Chibok schoolgirls. They are the target of rape, especially the girl child. Today, you have more incidents of rape against the girl child that is a minor, ranging from months to 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. And that is going on unabated in the society. And today, we find out that the health of the Nigerian child continues to suffer in ways that are unimaginable. On this day, we would call on a commitment to the implementation of these various acts that are supposed to protect the child, the Nigerian child, from these various forms of violence and lack of protection of their welfare. Today, we will call on those perpetrators of violence against the Nigerian child that exposes the Nigerian child to
to all forms of violence, as it were, to desist from doing so. And especially we'll call on government to enforce, and the relevant agencies to enforce all the laws that will protect the welfare, the education, and the health of the Nigerian child. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My name is Rabi Musa Kwankwaso, representing Kano Central. Mr. President, I stand to support this motion and also to add that while supporting the motion and of course urging the federal government to intensify effort to secure the release of the Dapchi and of course Chibok girls, Mr. President, there are other places across the country, especially in Zamfara State and Kaduna State, where quite a number of people were being kidnapped. Especially in Zamfara State, where very recently the family of the Honorable Commissioner, including children, were also being kidnapped. So when we come to consider the prayers, Mr. President, I would want to add that in addition to these two groups, we should also include other people who are being kidnapped across the country. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Senator Sumonu.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Monsurat Sumonu, representing Oyo Central Senatorial District. I congratulate our children on the Children's Day. And to this motion, actually, we employ the government to please look into all the acts in looking after children, both health-wise, their education, and also for our fathers to please join hands with mothers in looking after these children, try to see that they have at least basic education. This will help them to grow. Children will not be wandering around everywhere or engage themselves in activities that are really bad to the system. I wish them, because we should understand one thing, that they are our tomorrow and young child growth. For children above school age, even we can count the university children that are still going to school. We think we should be able to think of their tomorrow as well and assist them in all that they need to do. Thank you very much.
Senator Shafa.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Mr. Senate President, distinguished colleagues, first let me join other well-wishers in celebrating our children today. But while celebrating, I want us to focus our mind on the education and the security of our children. Of late, you'll agree with me, in some parts of Nigeria, children are no more going to schools. And the reason is not far-fetched. Some of the schools have been attacked severally. Some of my colleagues have mentioned the kidnappings and abduction of the children. In my own senatorial district, Lagos East Senatorial District, last year, about 4 raids were made. 2 in the Model College at Epe, 1 at Babington Macaulay in Ikorodu, and another one in another school, at the border of Lagos and Ogun State. It has been very difficult convincing parents who experienced these dastardly attacks and kidnappings of their children, though they were released, to return these children back to school, aside from the psychological problems that these children have been going through. To this extent, I want government to focus more on vulnerable schools, particularly in the northern part and in the creeks. For instance, there are so many creeks in Lagos, where when these people attack the schools, especially the boarding schools, it is easy for them to escape through the creeks. Security must be provided by government and well-meaning individuals and corporate bodies. Aside from that, the recent killings, again, you will agree with me that these recent killings have created thousands of widows and fatherless and motherless children. If they cannot even survive by getting something to eat, how are they going to be educated? To this extent, I want to appeal to well-meaning Nigerians to partner with their various governments, federal, state, local governments, and see how we can tighten the security apparatuses in most of the schools, and at the same time provide a conducive environment for our children. These children are the future of Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Senator Kemade.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, I rise to facilitate with the children of Nigeria at this time, in solidarity with the mothers that brought this motion and the rest of us that joined. Mr. President, I'm troubled in this nation over an issue of the way our children are faring. The majority of them today do not enjoy the benefits of the development of this nation, mainly because of certain erroneous beliefs that some practices need not to be modernized. Apart from the points that have already been articulated by my colleagues, especially the recent disturbances in the country, in many parts of Nigeria, the children are the first on the line of those who suffer, be it Boko Haram or other insurgencies that we have seen in Nigeria. The children are grossly disadvantaged, and they are the ones that are suffering the most. But there is also an age-long practice in northern Nigeria, which is the practice of armagery, which, in my opinion, needs to be modernized and reviewed in order that these children should enjoy all the facilities children that don't go for armagery are enjoying. Agreed that government has established schools which they call armagery schools. But I believe that this is not enough. Parental presence for children is very important. Very, very important. And the idea that some children do not have parental care other than the care from their teachers for, what do they call it, Islamic studies and teachings of the Amalan alone, to my mind, is not good enough. If this is a cultural matter, I believe the leaders of our culture in these areas to begin to bring about some form of reforms so that this practice can be improved upon, this practice can be modernized in such a way that Almajiris become more productive for their nation and productive for themselves. And secondly, if it is a religious practice, I believe that the religious leaders should begin to bring about some form of reforms in order that the Almajiri practice is modernized to a point that these children can become more productive for themselves and also for the society. There are also several benefits that are available for children that live with their parents that these Almajiris do not enjoy. I think it's time for a review to be made so that they can also be beneficiaries of this lofty modernization which has been brought about in our nation. With these few remarks, Mr. President, sir, I stand with the promoters of this motion and felicitate with our children at this time and pray that their life for tomorrow becomes better than what it is today. Thank you.
Yes, Senator Marafa.
Thank you, Mr. President, my well-respected colleagues, Senator Marafa, the representatives of our Central. Mr. President, I rise to commend the mover of this motion. Well, I don't want to say all of you. The mover first and the co-sponsors. Because I can see that most of the sponsors are women.
No, I said.
Most of them, I said. Let me state the Nigerian children and women on this auspicious day. Mr. President, I looked at the content of the motion and especially the prayers, which are quite apt and very necessary for us to move as a nation. But Mr. President, having said this, I want to also say that I'm disappointed with the position of especially the women in this Senate, because as mothers, Mr. President, I expect the women, especially of this Senate, to stand up shoulder to shoulder with women in Zamfara State. Mr. President, my leader and colleague, Senator Kwankwaso, spoke about the ugly incidents of day before yesterday where a commissioner's wife and her 6 children were kidnapped in their house, in their village, and 3 days into the journey, nobody knows where she is now. This catches the attention of the media and everybody because it is a commissioner's wife. But the issue of kidnapping is a daily thing in Zamfara State today. And there is an estimated 5,000 victims of rape. And we have said it in this chamber, but up till now, the women of this chamber did not stand up to say that enough is enough of this very bad incident.
Page 3337.
Whereas in the 6th Assembly, when my colleague and my leader, Senator Ahmed Sani Yarima, fulfilled one of his religious rights by marrying a lady with the consent of her parents, almost the whole of this chamber was put upside down, that he married an underage, which is nobody's business at any rate, because her parents consented to the marriage. And Yarima is a Muslim, and he married the girl according to the Muslim rites. But so much noise was made in this country to the extent that women staged a protest on the streets of Abuja. Mr. President, today, their sisters are going through hell in Zamfara. Most of them victims of rape, like I said. There is an estimated 5,000 people killed in Zamfara. And these 5,000 people, with an average of 2 wives, which most of them possesses much more than 2 wives, there are about 10,000 widows as we speak today in Zamfara State. And if you take a conservative estimate of 4 children per family, Mr. President, we are talking of 20,000 orphans in Zamfara State today. And unfortunately, because it is not our culture to concentrate people in concentration camps or IDPs like some people would want to call it, nobody seems to pay attention to this catastrophe happening in our state. Mr. President, while I congratulate the women, but I want to see, no, I'm congratulating you for moving this motion because you are the mothers of the children. But unfortunately, you are selective on who you call your own children. Yes, today you are talking of child's rights. What we are talking in Zamfara is child survival. We are talking of child's survival. And I want to see you standing up with us to say that the children of the Zamfara State people have the right to survive. Because what we are talking there is not about schooling. It's not about, it's basic need of life, the right to life, then to food. There is serious humanitarian crisis as I speak today. Because these 20,000 children, 10,000 were widows, more than 5,000 rape victims. Mr. President, even the government of Zamfara State, to be fair to them, they cannot cater for all of them. And nobody is giving attention to it. Why? Because we have not taken the cue of concentrating these people in our state capital, causing chaos, causing problems to everybody. Mr. President, like I said, I want to commend the Nigerian children and their mothers, but I want to know the fathers are being killed. Yes, while the women are left to cater for themselves. Mr. President, I want to call on especially the Senate women, ladies in the Senate, to stand up and be counted because the crisis in Zamfara is affecting women. And unless if they are saying, like a colleague said, in animal farm, some are more equal than others, then we, the people of Zamfara State, want to see an equivalent commitment like we have seen in the Northeast. We are not surprised if the senators from Northeast are not supporting us because we know their own problem has been solved and largely by the people of Northwest. We created a commission for them. Yes, we listened to their problems, we did everything, but when it is our turn now for them to reciprocate, the Senate leader is looking at me. I don't know, he might want to sanction me next time. But the fact of the matter is you have not done enough, and I want the Senate leader to queue behind the women of this chamber in seeing that justice is done to the children of Zamfara State and to the women of Zamfara State and Northwest in general. Unless that is done, Mr. President, we will be forced to start looking at ourselves as animals, you know, that are less important in the animal kingdom. Mr. President, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I want to call on the women, especially my big sister, Senator Olurebi Tinubu, to stand up and do the needful. You have a voice in this country. Speak for the Zamfara State women and speak for the Zamfara State. Well, that is true Northwest because Bindingwari is suffering and equally devastating consequences arising from this unfortunate incident. Mr. President, I thank you, and I wish God Almighty will touch the heart of these ladies in this chamber to speak for the children and not only speak against marriages that they have they don't have any problem with. They should not. This is the time for them to stand up and speak. And you should speak. Thank you so much, Mr. President.
Senator Barafa, I'm going to give all the female senators extra time to speak and respond to you all this. So I'll start with Senator Tinubu, then I'll go back and I'll allow Rosoko to talk again.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Oluremi Tinubu, representing Lagos Central Senatorial District. I rise to lend my voice to all the various speakers that have spoken so passionately about the children of this nation. But for me, I believe that every year we come in here to do a motion, but we shouldn't stop there. I've worked with children and women, I would say all my life. But what is going on in this nation now is beyond what the government can shoulder by itself. So I'm calling on all Nigerians to rise up for us all to be our brothers' keepers. We saw just yesterday that after the funeral in the papers, after the funeral in Benue, the Vice President was off to the IDP camps. And Mr. President too has been to various IDP camps in the past, sending food, and we know the job, everybody has the responsibility, but every Nigerian should rise up in whatever means to help our neighbor. And we remember in those days, it takes a village to raise a family. But nowadays, with civilization, everybody has crawled back to their corner. I used to make fun of this little story I tell people. I said, since the white man came and started giving us individual plates at our various birthday parties to eat rice, Nigerians have become selfish. I remember when I was growing up that when we are having party in our own community, not SPO. SP is at Jebota. But in those days, I remember, and I don't think SP has ever had birthday parties like that. They will put the rice in a big tray and put the meat on top. We ate, everybody, even if it is one handful you take. But it was taken in love. But we've lost that, and now that everybody is having packed food, it has extended that we have forgotten how to care for our neighbor. So what all Senator Marafa is saying is just a cry for help. A cry for help on behalf of the Nigerian child. And I believe that our children, they deserve more. And we will start from this chamber itself. We want to, maybe when it comes to prayer, we have to assign every senator to take maybe a number of rice to an IDP camp and do what is needful. We will start with the Senate. The Senate President has done it in the past, going all the way to Borno, taking food, but now we should make it mandatory that we should now go, yes, we will do that, we will sign up, and we should do the needful. So that is my contribution. It is high time we all rose up to support our brothers and sisters that are in need, especially the children, and by extension, the mothers. Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me the...
Deputy Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and my distinguished colleague. You see, this motion has brought out two fundamental issues, sir. Fundamental in the sense that it has brought to fore the issue that the National Health Act 2014 has made provision that all pregnant women, the elderly, the disabled and children are to be exempted from paying for services in public hospitals.
But if you see, Mr. President, the assertion of the movers of this motion is to the effect that in practice, we are yet to achieve that. Now, of course, maybe this is where the attempt by the Senate to insist on the 1% in that budget should be a commendable issue. More so when we have the confirmation that over 6,000 people will benefit from each of the local governments in Nigeria. This is a very, very commendable effort, but we must do more than that, sir. First is for the Senate to recognize, and happily or sadly enough, yesterday we had a meeting here with the security agencies out of our concern for the killings that have gone unabated in the last couple of months. But having admitted that these killings have occurred, we must equally admit the fact that these men and women that were killed have children left behind. It therefore means that we must, out of sober reflection, look at the consequence of what has happened first on the children that were left as orphans. Now, if going by the statistics of Senator Marafa, that we have over 5,000 widows, 10,000 widows only in Zamfara alone, sir. In Zamfara alone, sir. And they are left with children, sir, to cater for. And admitting that the Zamfara state government itself is incapable of facing the problem in view of the limited resources that it has, it means there is a national problem, sir. It means there is a national problem. And therefore, the intervention of the Senate, I think, should go much more than the prayers of this motion. So while I commend the movers of the motion for this very, very important motion, I hope that by the time that we come to prayers, we will capture something that will serve as a relief or an intervention with short-term, medium-term, and long-term solution to the already invasive problem that these orphans that have left behind will cause for the society. And therefore, I think that it's a very important motion, and I thank the movers of the motion and wholeheartedly support the motion, sir. Thank you.
Senator Ben Moy Bruce.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Ben Moy Bruce, represented by I want to thank the movers of the motion. I want to thank Senator Marafa for what he has said about the women in Zamfara. But as a part of it, we have left off. I have a foundation that deals with rape victims. Apart from lack of education for children and nutrition for children, the biggest danger for our women and children today is rape. In my foundation, we encounter hundreds and thousands of kids that are raped on a daily basis. The other day, we had a 4-year-old in Lagos raped by her father. And this is a very serious problem in Nigeria. The other day, there were 6 women I met at a restaurant who were talking. 5 had been raped, 1 at a police station. If we are not careful, soon a great majority of our women in Nigeria would have been rape victims, and they would have been raped as children. One of the young ladies said to me, and she had a frown on her face, she said, until she was 13 and had sex education in school, she did not know she was raped. So in addition to lack of education, lack of opportunity for our children, rape is a very serious issue. Our mothers and our senators should look at it, how that can be avoided. Our laws are too lax. When you go to court, the onus is on the victim to prove that the perpetrator shouldn't have done what he did, and it is very difficult to get conviction. Now, what is also important is we must find a way to keep our children in school longer so that they can get to be 18 before they get married. I don't stand to Marafa said it's nobody's business when you get married. But the point is, another big problem we have in Nigeria is the explosive population growth. We may argue with China that China is immorally wrong to say you have one child per family. But if China had not done that, China would have had a population of 5 billion, maybe 80% of the world's population. And that would have caused chaos. Today, we are growing too fast. And let me say this, the population growth of Nigeria is no longer a northern problem. Please, I think everybody, it is not a northern problem. In Bayelsa the other day, for every village and hut I went to, there were 10, 15, 20 children without clothes outside the hut. We are dealing with a time bomb. And again, these are children. They need to get to school, which the state cannot provide education for. They need clothing. The parents cannot pay for that. The parents themselves have no job. And these kids are vulnerable. And if these kids are vulnerable, they become sex victims. And after they become sex victims, we raise a bunch of very angry children who become women and who become our mothers. So this motion is very, very important. I'd like everybody to pay attention to the fact that these kids are victims, but these victims will become women. And when they become women, you will understand the difficulties you will have when a rape victim at 3 or 4 or 5 becomes when a 3-year-old rape victim, a 5-year-old rape victim becomes a mother, becomes a future senator, becomes a future governor, becomes a future leader. You need to understand the psychological effect it will have on the women of today and the women of tomorrow. I know for a fact, with my interaction, a lot of women I meet today are rape victims. They tell me. A lot of children are rape victims. I know. My foundation deals with it. So I urge my colleagues, this bill, this anniversary we're celebrating is very, very important. But we must find a way, in terms of our law enforcement officials, how to deal with these problems. We must find a way in terms of governance and how to keep kids in school so we can avoid early marriages. We must find a way to deal with therapy, because a lot of these kids today are traumatized. So there must some kind of therapy to find a way for them to overcome these difficulties these children find themselves. If I did not have a foundation, I would not have known. But I know, so I have no excuse. So I urge all of you to pay attention to this. What Senator Marfa is saying is true. If the parents are dead, the children are on their own. But what is so strange about all of this is about the perpetrators of this crime are those close to the children and close to the family. They don't come from far away. I can give you statistics of how this happens. It's either an uncle, a brother, a sister, a father. These are the people who exploit these children. These children are a gift from God. They are what we have. We need to protect them and look after them. For every day, in some household, in some family, somebody's getting raped, and we will confront these women at some point. It is a terrible thing to talk about. I am embarrassed to say it, but Nigeria is becoming a nation full of rape victims. And I beg you, please, pay attention to your children, pay attention to our women. We cannot afford to have a society where we become victims of this crime. Thank you very much.
Senator Samayo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues. Samayo East. Mr. President, first of all, let me congratulate my colleague, Senator Binta Masi, for this wonderful motion. And let me congratulate the children in advance for the 27th May celebration, Children's Day. Mr. President, I want to align myself with what Senator Onuremi Tinubu just said, that we should go beyond motion. Every 27th of May, everybody will rise up and make contributions to congratulate the children. What have we done? We should go beyond ordinary congratulating the children to go into realities. And what do I mean, Mr. President? We should show little kindness to the children of Nigeria, not only the orphans, because these days, because of the situation in this country, nobody knows who is orphan, nobody knows who is displaced. Many people are now entirely displaced in one way or the other. So I think it's important, even in my state where I come from, so many children have been displaced because of the maladministration there. I think it's important we look at the issue of the federal government programs We have this Empower program, which the government has established. We have the feeding program of the students, the children in schools, but we have to extend it to these less privileged children who are not less privileged out of their own fault or their own doing, but because of circumstances. I think it's important we look at those programs. To find out that the Empower program today, Mr. President, goes into the hands of those who are even comfortable. Those little money can be transformed into this, IDPs and their children. If you fly all over the world, when you enter international flights, you will see handouts, envelopes given to be able to feed the children all over the world. So I think it's important we should look at this in our own situation. In this country, Mr. President, I think that this present administration has a good intention with their program of the Empower, but it's been misdirected. The issue of feeding of the children has been hijacked by so many, rich men, politically. So I think it's important we should divert these funds to reach to the grassroots, to all these indigent families, all these IDPs that are taking the bulk of this money, give it to one minister to go and share, and then will take his family and political appointees to share this money. I think it's not proper. This government should show little kindness. There is suffering in this country, Mr. President. Let us be realistic about these things. So I think that today that we're talking about the children of this country, they lack so many amenities. Senator Ben Bruce, was able to describe it completely. There are so many families today. To feed a square meal is a problem. But I think that if it is properly harnessed, the program of the federal government can go around all these indigent families. And then Senator Naila talked about health. Today, children all over the world, even in the African countries here, go to Ghana, go to Gambia, all those small children below 10 years have free medical treatment. In Africa, go to South Africa, they have free medical attention. But most of these children die out of malnutrition, die out of lack of health care, because even as poor as their parents are, when they go to hospital, they will require to pay money before they can be treated. And this does not go well for us. We as leaders, we as politicians, we as fathers and good parents should show little kindness. And it must start with the program of the government. Yesterday, Mr. President, all the security chiefs are coming up with funds to create opportunity to secure this country. You must secure those who are alive. You must not secure those who are dead. So the way we are going to bring funds, we should also find a way to bring out money to take care of this less privilege. Senator Mwefa have said about the children, about 20,000 children in Zamfara who are orphans. Why do we allow them to go like that because they are not our children? This money we are going to, these funds we are going to create to give to army, police, air force and other people to secure the environment. We should from there bring money to secure the lives of these innocent children. I think, Mr. President, I feel for these children. Some of us in our individual capacity have taken most of these children, give them scholarships individually, but it's beyond that. As a government, we must be responsible and responsive to the yearnings of these innocent children who, out of not their own fault, are suffering today. I think that's what I have to contribute, Mr. President, and I wish the children that we still love them, we care for them, and will continue to do our best to protect the children of this country. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Bukeri.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, my name is Abubakar Kyari, Senator representing Borno North. I would like to join the previous speakers in commending the movers of this motion, in celebrating the Children's Day. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I'm extremely worried by the infant mortality rate figure that I see in this motion. 1 million deaths per annum translates to an average of almost 3,000 per day. What it means is that we have on average 3,000 children below the ages of 5 dying on a daily basis. Just last week, an airliner crashed in Cuba. 110 or thereabouts died, perished in that air mishap. And the whole country went into mourning. Days of mourning were declared and all that. But here we are in this country, almost 3,000 children die on a daily basis, and nothing is being done about it. Primarily, there are two principal reasons that I see. One is poverty, and the other one is lack of social responsibility by the government. I think that the crime is more than what we see. I know my distinguished Senator Marafa has mentioned the issues of Zamfara children. In Borno too, we have over 50 or almost 60,000 orphans as a result of the crisis. But I would like to also give him an advice that he should not trample on the sorrows and griefs of others to promote his case. We share his grief, we share what is happening in Zamfara, but he should not be trampling on the sorrows of others. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I would like to add also here that there is not only one girl that is under abduction right now. There are several other children of school age that are under the custody of Boko Haram insurgents and other criminals around the country. So I would like to suggest, and I think I'll leave that to when we get to the prayers, and then maybe make an amendment to those prayers so that the other girls should also, the other children should also be released. Thank you very much.
Go to prayers. Prayer 1, congratulate the Nigerian children on the celebration of the 2018 Children's Day. Those in favor of prayer 1 say aye. Those against say nay. Ayes have it. Prayer 2, felicitate with the federal government and families of abducted schoolgirls that have been released. Those in favor of prayer 2 say aye. Those against say nay. Ayes have it. Prayer 3, urge the federal government to intensify effort to the rescue release of Leah Sharibu, the only abducted schoolgirl that is yet to be released, and the remaining Chibok schoolgirls that are still in custody of the Boko Haram insurgents. Those in favor of prayer 3 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Any additional prayer? Yes, Deputy Leader.
Additional prayer, Mr. President, is to urge the federal government to come up with a dedicated fund to assist the various Ministry of Social Welfare in the states affected, with a view to setting a platform to educate and care for these orphans.
Just slowly.
Urge the federal government to come up with a dedicated fund to assist the various state ministries for social welfare, or to assist the various Ministry of Social Welfare in the states affected, with a view to setting a platform to educate and care for these orphans. They don't have. They don't have.
Who is seconding that, Senator Shafa?
I rise to second the motion. No prayer. The prayer ably moved by distinguished Senator Nala. I so second.
Senator Nala, can you repeat your prayer again?
Sir, the prayer, I read again. Urge the federal government to come up with a dedicated fund to assist the various Ministry of Social Welfare in the state affected, with a view to setting a platform to educate and care for these children. Yes, we can, sir. It's an emergency.
Okay, those in favor of the additional prayer, we say urge the federal government to come up with dedicated funds to assist the various ministries of social welfare in the states affected, to set up a platform to be used to educate and take care of the orphans. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Any other additional prayer? Yes, Senator Tinubu.
Thank you, Mr. President. The additional prayer is urge all senators to pledge support in cash or kind for the vulnerable children or orphans in Zamfara State.
What is repeat the prayer?
The second prayer is urge all senators to pledge support in cash or kind for the vulnerable children or orphans in Zamfara State.
Any seconder? No seconder. Senator Barafa.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Let me seize this opportunity, Mr. President, before seconding, to talk to my friend Kari. What I said was in a lighter mood about Northeast, especially as it affects the Senate leader. So I'm not undermining their problems in Southeast. Mr. President, having Northeast, so I really sympathize, yes, Northeast, I really sympathize, but I want to see a commensurate reciprocity from the people of Northeast. Mr. President, having said this, I want to thank Senator Remi Tinubu quite frankly for proposing this very, very beautiful prayer. And I want to solicit the support of all my colleagues to come to the end, because this thing is sir, it is very important.
Second motion. Second motion.
Sulawumpe, you are not supposed to even be in this chamber now. Talk less of amending any prayer. So can you please keep quiet? Mr. President, I rise to amend the prayer moved heavily by Senator Remi, and I urge my colleagues, especially the rednecks. Yes, Senator Gamadi is already seconding. I thank you so much for seconding this prayer. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of this additional prayer, urge all senators to please pledge support in cash and kind for the vulnerable children or orphans in Zamfara State. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Abu Kyari.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Abu Kyari, representing Borno North. Mr. President, I want us to take us back to prayer 3. And further amend that prayer 3 reads, urge the federal government to intensify effort to secure the release of Leah Sharibu, the only Dapchi school girl that is yet to be released, and the remaining, the remaining Chibok school girls and all other children under the custody of both Boko Haram and other criminals. Custody of, in captivity. So you can second them.
Distinguished colleagues, let me join all our colleagues who have contributed to congratulate the Nigerian children on the celebration of the 2018 Children's Day. As we congratulate and we celebrate, we continue to hold on to our responsibilities of ensuring that we show love, care, and more importantly, we lay a foundation for a bright future for our children. And I want the Senate, as we say this, is supported by our action and what we do. We've all seen the statistics that show today that Nigeria accounts for 10% of the total world infant mortality, total world maternal mortality. These are not figures we should be proud of, where only 1 in 4 children get immunization. So I believe as we celebrate, let us take up the responsibility to improve the health of our children. And I'm happy that with the 1% we have put for primary health care and with proper implementation, we can see full coverage of immunization of our children. That will go a long way in reducing the mortality. Secondly, also, is for us to look at the UBEC law and see how we can ensure that there are many more years of free education, because education is very, very important. That bill has already passed. We're waiting for concurrence from the House. I think these are the kind of gifts that we can give to our children to lay a bright future. And thirdly is the Child Rights Act that some states still have not passed. I've had the opportunity to engage the speakers of some of the states. I'm happy that some of our senators here are leaders in your states. Please let us work to see that Child Rights Act is passed in all our 36 states, in line with whatever peculiarities are in those different states. Because as we said, there's a lot of violence that we're seeing against our children. This is an area that we need to work very hard on. And lastly, as we said, is for us to continue to ensure the security of our country, because they are the most vulnerable in areas of security challenges. But once again, I join us to congratulate and celebrate this day. But as we celebrate it, let us live up to our own part of our responsibilities in ensuring that we make our children healthier, we make them more, we give them the best education so that they have a bright future. Thank you. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, due to the absence of the sponsors, of the chairman for the presentation and consideration of the fourth and fifth orders of the day, I will move that we stand the presentation and consideration of these reports till another legislative day. I so move.
President, that we stand down the report for another legislative day. I so second.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the sixth order of the day is the consideration of the report of the Committee on Water Resources on the National Water Resources Establishment, etc. Bill 2018. Distinguished senators will recall that the report of the committee was laid on Thursday, the 8th of March 2018. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Obali Shitu, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the consideration of the report.
Senator Shitu.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I'm Senator Mohammed Ubali Shitu, representing Jigawa North East. I move that the Senate do consider the report of the Committee on Water Resources on the National Water Resources Establishment Bill 2018 SB 479. I so move.
Senator Parker.
Mr. President, I rise to second motion deeply moved by my colleague. That's so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do receive the report, do consider the report of the Committee on Water Resources on the National Water Resources Establishment Special Bill 2018 SB 479. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Shitu, kindly present the report.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The report of the Central Committee on Water Resources on a bill for an act to establish a regulatory framework for the water resources sector in Nigeria, provide for the equitable and sustainable development, management, use, and the conservation of Nigeria's surface water and the groundwater resources and for related matters. Introduction. This is an executive bill which is for an act to establish a regulatory framework for the water resource sector in Nigeria, provide for equitable and sustainable development, management, use, and the conservation of Nigeria's surface water and the groundwater resources and for related matters. The Senate concluded based on the general principle of the bill and referred same to the Committee on Water Resources through the referral letter dated 22nd day of November 2017 for further legislative action. By the notice of the referral, the committee was directed to report to the Senate committee within 4 weeks. Objection of the bill. The bill seeks to provide a regulatory framework for water resource sector in Nigeria. Ensure that the nation's water resources are properly protected, used, developed, conserved, managed, and controlled. C. Meet basic water needs of the present and future generations. Enhance citizens' right to access to clean water and sanitation. E. Provide for existing customary use of water and avoidance of harm to other water users. F. Facilitate social development, improve public health and economic development. G. Reduce and prevent pollution and degradation of water resources and the aquatic environment. H. Provides public-private partnership in the development, management of water resources infrastructure and meet the international obligation in the water resource sector. Highlight the committee's activities. Over receipt of the notice of referral, the committee met and resolved to organize public hearing on the bill. Consequent upon the said committee resolution, the committee held a 2-day public hearing on the bill on Tuesday, 5th and Wednesday, 6th of December 2017, and subsequent mark-up sessions. Bill analysis. The legal framework for the regulation of the water sector in Nigeria comprises of various laws that deal with various issues relating to water. The effect of this is that there is no single comprehensive legislation dealing with the water resource sector in Nigeria. With the resultant poor management of this important sector, some of the significant legislation on water include Water Resources Act, National Water Resources Institute Act, National Inland Waterways Authority Act, River Basin Development Authority Act, Territorial Waters Act, Harmful Waste Special Criminal Prohibition etc. Act, Inland Fisheries Act, and Maritime Operation Coordinating Board Act, among others. The effect of having many laws as listed above is that many of them have overlapping and conflicting provisions, which negatively affect effective administration. In 2016, the Federal Executive Council approved a draft National Water Resources Bill and 2 policies, National Water Policy and National Irrigation Policy, as part of measures to enhance quality of water resources in the country. The National Water Policy seeks to provide strategies that will improve the management and delivery of water in the country, in particular reference to water supply. The Irrigation and Drainage Policy seeks to organize and bring in water users association and generally improve not only irrigation infrastructure, but irrigation management in the country. Against the above background, this bill, being an executive bill, is proposed to sort out these issues to pave way for standard national law on water resources, set up a proper regulatory agency to regulate water sector, thereby creating way for private sector investment in the water supply schemes in Nigeria. The bill is made up of 15 parts, comprising 152 clauses as follows. Part 1, clause 1 to 3 covers objective and entitlement to use of water. Part 2, clauses 4 to 9 deals with National Water Council on water resources. Part 3, clauses 10 to 11 to 14 covers powers and functions of the Minister responsible for water resources. Part 4, clauses 15 to 47 provides for the Nigerian Water Resources Regulatory Commission. Part 5, clauses 48 to 60 makes provision for establishment, function, and powers of river basin development authorities. Part 6, clauses 61 to 80 provides for establishment and the other matters relating to Nigerian Hydrological Service Agency. Part 7, clauses 81 to 93 establish National Water Resources Institute and makes for provision relating to its function and operation. Part 8 covers water resources planning and management. Part 9, clauses 99 to 111 deals with licensing, which includes issues of application charges of water, groundwater conservation areas, among others. Part 10, Clause 112 to 119, covers monitoring, reporting, and information system. Part 11, Clauses 120 to 124, covers issues of borehole drilling. Part 12, Clauses 125 to 130, deals with the general matters, such as public consultation, entry into the land in furtherance of duties, power to acquire land, auditors, and exemption from liability. Part 13, Clauses 131 to 134, covers offences, inquiry in respect of compensation to harm, loss, or damage suffered. Part 14, Clauses 135 to 147, deals with Nigerian Water Resources Development Fund. Part 15, Clauses 148 to 152, deals with miscellaneous matters such as adaptation of such laws, repeal of laws, transitional provision and interpretation, and short title. Recommendation. After deliberating on the various provisions of the bill and the following the public hearing conducted, the committee makes the following recommendations. The use of word act to refer to the bill is changed to bill throughout the bill. Rationally, it only becomes an act when it is duly passed and assented by the President or vetoed is overridden. The words set and the basic are inserted in Clause 1A to qualify water and sanitation respectively. Rationally, this is a better adjective in the circumstance because clean water does not mean necessarily safe water. Clause 1I is substituted with a new paragraph for promoting public-private sector partnership in the delivery of water services. Rationale. Public-private partnership is necessary to facilitate availability and effective use of water. The expression electricity generation in the clause 8C, subsection 8 is substituted with the hydroelectric power generation. Rationally, this is more appropriate and more encompassing. Clause 8C, new item 10 and 11 inserted immediately after the existing 9 as Surveyor General of the Federation and National Planning Development. The additions are relevant in the circumstance. Clause 16 dealing with objectives of the Commission is amended in paragraph C by substituting it with a new paragraph as follows: to ensure that licensed authorized developers as well as other users of water resources, whether for consumption or non-consumptive purposes, and their infrastructure meet the technical, social, commercial requirements and the obligations required under this bill in a manner which promotes fairness as well as well-being of all the citizens. Rationally, this redraft is more comprehensive and better conveys legislative intent therein. In Clause 17.2, subsection B3, instead of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria is substituted with Nigerian Mining and Geosciences. Nigerian ICANN has no direct relevance in the board. Nigerian Mining and Geosciences is very relevant. Represented by the Nigerian Association of Hydrologists. It's a body registered professionals involved in the practice of hydrology in Nigeria. It represents the interest of groundwater experts within Nigeria and the Mining and Geosciences Society. In Clause 17, board members shall be commissioners meanwhile. Representatives of ministers are just board members. Rather, the commission as an independent body should be professionally structured and considered in line with similar professionally oriented commission in the country. The marginal note in Clause 18 is changed from tenure of office to tenure and the condition of service of the commissioners. The provision covers not only tenure but condition of service. In Clause 20, the marginal note is changed from vacation of office of members to vacation of office by commissioners. Rationally, the board members have been changed to commissioners in Clause 17. In In clause 22, Mr. President, I need to protect because they are disrupting my reading.
That means you are not serious.
Senator Oluwamitunu, may you please go back to your seat. Then, Senator, yes. Your mic.
In clause 22, an additional subclause inserted as 5 as follows. In the discharge of the function, the Commission shall consult from time to time, and to the extent the Commission considers appropriate, such persons or group of persons who may or are likely to be affected by the decision or orders of the Commission, including but not limited to licenses, consumers, potential investors, and other interested parties. Rationally, this is a significant matter of consultation with persons likely to be affected by the act of the Commission is left out of the existing provision. In clause 25(1), the press subject to the confirmation by the Senate is inserted immediately after the one minister. Rational appointment of a top official like executive secretary should not be left exclusively to the exclusively an executive affair. In clause 87(2)(a), sums appropriated by the federal government is now redrafted to reflect appropriated by the National Assembly. The National Assembly is the only organ of government constitutionally vested with the powers of appropriation. In clause 87(2), a new paragraph D is inserted as follows. 2% of the ecological fund. Consequently, the existing paragraph D is renumbered as paragraph E. Rationale, there is need for diversity of sources of funding of the Commission. General remark, the recommendations highlighted above are the major ones. There are several other recommendations contained in tabular report that are not reflected in this synopsis. And this is to make the report sizable enough. The result of the recommendation amendment of the bill are contained in the tabular report. Furthermore, the committee recommended the inclusion of Part 14 titled Nigerian Water Resource Development Fund for the purpose of financing the development of water resources and expanding its many uses across Nigeria. Conclusion. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, on behalf of members of the committee and my humble self, I want to express our appreciation to you for affording us this rare opportunity to serve this distinguished Senate and by extension our beloved country, Nigeria. I hereby present details of the recommendation for your consideration and approval. Thank you very much and God bless.
Thank you, Chairman. Santaliru.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, I rise to say that this is a very straightforward bill. It's a bill that we have been waiting for quite a long time. I happen to be a member of the committee that worked seriously and diligently on this bill, and even the World Bank is waiting for the passage of this bill so that they can bring in money to improve the irrigation facilities in Nigeria. Right now, we have well over $1.5 billion that is waiting to be utilized, and I urge my colleagues to support this bill so that the water sector in this country can be regulated properly, and the passage of this bill will also make it possible for private sector to come in and improve on the irrigation facilities. So this is a very straightforward bill. It has already gone through the second reading. I will urge my colleagues to allow the chamber to consider, third reading of this bill. Thank you.
Yes, Senator Bocha.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I want to lend my support to the remarks made by Valero. And Mr. President, I haven't seen actually contentious issues in the bill, and it's one key sector that we need to work upon to bring or put smiles on the faces of Nigerians. I want to add in this way that we should expedite passage of this bill. Thank you.
I just want clarification on this section 87, where they're talking about 2% for ecological fund. Those that worked on the bill, I mean, can we put that in a bill in mandating that 2% of the ecological fund? And there are already clear guidelines on how ecological funds should be applied. I just want some guidance. Leader, thank you.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, it has often been a very difficult and dicey situation when you have to take money from the ecological fund. Because what this means is we have to amend the ecological fund itself. Otherwise, they cannot afford to give money without an amendment that clearly stipulates that 2% should be given to this. That's the implication.
So how are we to be guided with that? Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to concur with the leader of the Senate, but I want to quickly state here that when loans are made and we realize that the importance of such law is superior to existing laws, we do, by compelling reason, amend other laws to suit it. This bill, this water law, is so important for this nation that we need to do whatever is possible to ensure that it functions. Today, people don't realize that a liter of water is more expensive than a liter of petrol. And so it is with most other resources. So we must guide our water resources very jealously, something we have not been doing at all, because we take for granted that water is everywhere and it rains everywhere. But safe water is not an easy thing. So while agreeing with him, I think we can go ahead and pass this law and do the necessary amendment of the ecological law to suit it. Thank you, sir.
Senator Porker.
Senator Porker Emmanuel, Bayelsa Central. My suggestion is this. We should expunge that section of the law, and then we go ahead to pass this bill as it is. It is only when we have made the ecological law that we can now come back and seek for amendment, because we can't pass the bill as is reflected in this form. Ecological law is existent. So the best we can do in the moment is to expunge that section of this law, is expunge the 2% to be taken from the ecological fund. And as soon as we pass this bill and amend that ecological fund law, we can now come and seek for amendment of this law. I think that's my view. Thank you.
Yeah, Senator Ali Mekina.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I believe that I support the comment of Senator Walker, because we cannot just take 2% from ecological fund when they are not even aware that such a percentage is going to be taken from their resources. It is better to amend the ecological fund to say you are to collect 2% to pay to the water before it can work. If not, it will not be fair for us to say we pass this bill with 2% and they are not even aware of it. They will not even approve it.
Distinguished colleagues, I think we need to just agree on what our priorities are, and the responsibility lies with us. If we all agree that this is important, this is a priority, nothing stops us in passing this today and bringing the ecological bill and passing immediately. Because doing the other way might be correct, but I don't think it shows the importance and the seriousness that this deserves. I would want to appeal that it is better, let's show the commitment we have to this water bill to pass it
and take an undertaking that within the week we will bring the ecological bill and pass it. Unless we think that we will not pass I mean, it is also that we have to do what is required. Unless anybody has any other different view. Leader, you want to, it's your bill.
Mr. President.
Information, I'm even told that, just for information, I'm even told that the ecological bill at the moment is even at the committee level and is meant to be almost coming to us, just for information purposes. Carry on, Nelly.
Yeah, Mr. President, I just wanted to add that if we are in agreement that the 2% is worthwhile, then nothing stops us to immediately pass it as recommended by the committee and then work on the ecological fund. Because this is very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. And you know, Leader, we will support. This is your first bill to do with infrastructure. So we must make sure that it doesn't stumble. So anything it requires, we will give you the support that is required. So let's move motion to go to clause by clause. Okay.
Mr. President. Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, I move that the Senate resolves into Committee of the Whole to consider the report clause by clause, and water will be free even in Zamfara.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second that we resolve into a Committee of the Whole for a class by class consideration of this bill.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, this bill has 152 clauses. This bill is the leader's first bill. This bill is the president's bill, so we are going to have a very swift movement at passing this bill. So, clause 1 to 50. Those in favor that clause 1 to 50 stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Abdullahi, what do you want to say? Clause which one?
As amended and set out in first schedule to this bill, together with the bets and banks, it's vested in the government. Now, I think under this one we have to define the banks because it's a very serious thing. It's just like a road. When you are constructing the road, you normally define from the center of the road 50 meters long. Otherwise, a lot of conflict is going to arise. It's the definition of the lands that are under the control of this government on each riparian system that we have. You take the Niger, for example, that traverses several states, and then you say the bank. Now, what do you mean by the bank? You have to be very, very clear about where the bank extends from the center of the river to either side of the river system. So I don't know whether we are going to adopt the system that is adopted normally in
in the road sector, you know, where 50 meters from the center of the road inland, you know, is the determined area, you know, where the governmental authority and responsibility rests. Because riverbanks are even much more contentious, you know, than roads, you know, because of agricultural and several other fishing and several other activities that take place there. So I think 50 meters under these circumstances may be too much, but I think we have to be able to define exactly where the authority of the government lies, you know, on either side of the bank of the river. Thank you, sir. Otherwise, I have no objection to the bill.
Senator Gamali.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My distinguished colleagues, the comment is well taken, but I'd like to point out here very clearly, my colleagues, that when you come to road infrastructure, you have definitive measurement, but rivers don't have a definitive measurement. So you cannot define banks by way of measurement from center line, so many meters on both sides. Besides, the river size can change even in the course of 1 year. So the river banks are natural occurrences which we should just refer to as you look at the river at any given time. So the proposal to do a measurement from center line of the river, it does not arise. So this is the reason why it is. It might be vague, but of course, in terms of physical inspection, you will know what the river bank is at any given. What about the names? What names?
Mr. Chairman, distinguished colleagues, I plead to disagree with this clause on page 5, because the discussion of river bank is going to cause a lot of issues. First, we have a lot of Supreme Court decisions on this, that the river banks are the natural elongation of the surface of the land. And then, of course, the last judgment that had to do with the issue of even the offshore oil was that, yes, it should be allowed up to 200 meters isobar. And there's already a statutory provision to that also, which was reconfirmed by the Supreme Court. And most communities in Nigeria that have rivers, sometimes those rivers dry up. So when we start making laws to cover some of those places, when they dry up, they become residential quarters and all that. And then it will cause a lot of confusion here. So we really need to be much more careful. I don't think this provision is essential here. And then the kind of river that we are talking about should actually be clearly defined. If we want to say that all waters in Nigeria must be legislated upon by the federal government, then will cause a lot of confusion. Because there are a lot of communities that depend on small rivers to survive. Small rivers all over, either in terms of fishing or in terms of planting rice and other things. And if now, even their banks that they utilize for their daily bread now belongs to federal government and subject to federal legislation. Again, we are doing what we are not supposed to do. We are over-centralizing power at the center. We are not doing devolution of power. We are bringing back Nigeria as a unity state. We are now trying to make sure that even communities are now even dispossessed of their land, because some of those places are natural elongation of the land. So I don't know how we are going to reverse it. That we either delete this or we find a way to reverse it in order to make sure that the communities are not shortchanged. Thank you, sir.
Senator Parker.
As a rider to what my colleague had just mentioned, I mean Senator Bargo, there is need for us to define the type of rivers. And in a situation, present situation where climatic changes are in vogue, most of these rivers even dry up. That is seasonal rivers. So if we define banks as being owned by the federal government, definitely will tantamount to creating a lot of problems. And so there is need for us to look at it closely and then define what these banks are. Because when you talk about rivers, you talk about the width of the river. There are some rivers that if you go to go there in the dry season, around December, November, you don't have a river. So how do you define the banks? So it will create more problems. So we should look at it closely before we endorse this. So to me, like Kamade even said, even when you talk about the offshore, onshore, it is defined 200 miles. So if we just say river bank, it makes no sense. So I think the leader should look at it closely and talk about the definition of what he means by river bank. Like I said earlier, there are some rivers that are seasonal, so you cannot even define the bank of such rivers. So when they dry up, what is the bank? So there is need for us to define this river bank. If not, it creates a lot of problems for the federal government. And so submit. And also, when we talk about devolution, every person is talking of devolving powers. Now, when you now say federal government should take care of the river bank, cited in Zamfara, or cited in take Lake Chad, for example, is drying up. Most of our lakes most of the rivers and lakes are drying up. So how do we define the banks? I believe it creates more problems. So we should just remove that one. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Kemadi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my distinguished colleagues. I think the controversy being generated by this little clause here can be avoided completely by removing together with bears and banks, so that nobody is now concerned about definition of bears, of rivers and banks, which are just changing, because the schedule is definitive. Therefore, we remove this clause together with the bears and banks, and that will solve the problem. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, my very respected colleagues, Senator, my very respected senior, Senator Gamale, even the rider before them, that there shall be no private ownership of water, but the right to use water in accordance with the provisions of this act. A lot of people have bought properties where within the property is enclosed a small river. And then, of course, they use it either for their as fish ponds or other things and all that. So when we make a law like this, and it becomes all embracing, it will lead to a lot of confusion. We really need to know what we mean by river, and in this case, because I can give you an instance. Between us and Cameroon, there are many communities in Ogoja area that are sharing very small river, and it becomes almost international, but those communities don't recognize it because of the closeness and the intermarriage, they have common market and all that. So by the time we come and make this kind of law, it means that that small river that they enjoy, they use for agricultural purposes, will now become a federal government property. So when we say that there shall be no private ownership of water, but the right to use water, even this water in your swimming pool can be interpreted to be the water that belongs to federal government of Nigeria. And so, sir, even the one that you dam and take into your farm can be described as attempting to utilize water in a private capacity. And then, like you mentioned, Lake Chad used to have 25,000 square kilometers of water. Today, it has dried up and has less than 5,000. So what it means is that if the banks had extended to 25,000 square kilometers, and now you have 5,000, it means 20,000 has been left for the use of the communities, for fishing and others. And if that had belonged to the federal government, they will have no right to make use of the 20,000 that are now dried up. So I believe that if we should get legal experts to look at these things, and proper definition should be done. But if we have to rush and pass this kind of bill now, we are not only creating more problems, but we are further reducing Nigeria to a banana republic, where at the time that we should devolve power to states. Well, I don't know how we intend to describe this, but I'm saying that let's not do something that cannot stand the test of time. even in the court, and cause more confusion for the community.
Yes, leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Still on that page, clause 3, the operative part of that sentence is, with your permission, sir, the right to the use, management, and control of all surface water and groundwater affecting more than one state. Affecting more than one state, so your swimming pool cannot be federal government water body. Affecting more than one state. There are few rivers in Nigeria that go through more than one state. And this is what this particular clause is talking about. There are some rivers that belong to communities. Some within one state, some within one local government. Federal government does not have control over those. So it's not like we are trying to bring every water under the control of federal government. That's not correct. So this is, Mr. President, this is an attempt by the federal government, if once we're able to get this, to ensure that rivers like Benue, rivers like Niger that cut across many states are really under the federal government control, and utilization is controlled. Other rivers are not affected by this. I have River Yobe in my state. River Yobe is not under the control of the federal government, and it will not be because of the nature of that river. So we are not saying all rivers will be under the control of the federal government. No community will be denied the utilization of their water body that is local to them, that is within their area. And no one should assume that the federal government should have a total control of all the water bodies in Nigeria. That's not even practical. So I want to appeal to my colleagues. Please, this is one bill that we need to pass to reform the water resources sector in this country. Everybody is waiting. Mr. President, the submission by the minority of the opposition leader definitely was off the mark, and I ask that he should understand it the way it is here.
I don't want to argue with the Senate leader, but I believe that we are all here in a bipartisan manner. The opposition leader or opposition leader does not come in. I'm only a minority leader. I will only have my say, he can have his way. But I am saying that the essence of making law is for the law to stand the test of time and not to bring more confusion to the community. In a place in Akwa Ibom called a state polytechnic in Ikorosuba, we have a small river that the students use. That river goes into the next community in Ikwano or so, in Ngwa. Very small river. But because Ngwa is in Abia State, it means that this law will affect that small river. It's just a very small river in front of the polytechnic, next to Bigger Memorial Seminary in Ikorosuba, where I come from. And it also crosses into one or two villages in Ngwa. And this is not up to 2 kilometers. So when we are talking, the moment you say that any small river that crosses more than one state automatically belongs to the federal government, it means that small river, I'm sorry, I'm coming, sir. It means that small river is now going to be managed by the federal government. So I think if the intention here is to look at certain rivers that the federal government wants to have control over, let's leave them. And those must be rivers like Benue, River Niger, River this. There's nothing wrong in listing them here. But when we put this kind of omnibus clause about federal government total control of water, groundwater, surface water, and particularly the one that crisscrosses into another state, there's no river that starts and ends in one state. The Cross River, for instance, takes its route from the Cameroon Mountains, crosses Cross River State, enters into Akwa Ibom, and from Akwa Ibom it goes into Abia. And yet, in some areas, it becomes very small. It becomes very small, like small rivers. While in other areas, it's quite large. So this is going to lead to a lot of confusion and a lot of legal rumbling. And we are further depriving our citizens of the right to make use of the resources within their communities, just like water. If we can deny our people just small water in their area because that water touches the next village, which is in another state, automatically we are over legislating. The way out is that we must go back and define the rivers we are talking about. If we want to talk about River Benue, Nigeria is not so large that we cannot list the rivers that we think the federal government should have control over. If it is River Benue, we put it River Benue. If it is Niger, we put River Niger. And said in this particular river that we believe that the federal government should have control over this and that. And if you are going to say river, I'm saying, sir, it's going to be something that will cause confusion. We must make laws to protect our citizens from. In fact, it's going to lead to more war, more communal clashes in future, because people are going to stand up and say, look, this is your river here. It belongs to federal government because it has touched my backyard, which is in another state. Can you even define the boundaries of states today? We have problems since 1976. Many states have no boundaries. Many states have no boundary because the National Boundary Commission has not been able to even define which one is the boundary of this state and the boundary of the other state. Some local governments have no boundaries. So if we are talking about internal rivers in Nigeria and they must now be owned by federal government, we are over-legislating. And we have gone back to what we thought we were going to remove a lot of things from the exclusive list and then devolve power to states. And yet we are now denying the states and the communities of even the use of common water. Sir, I think this bill, we must take a second look at it. I'm not against making a law to control water. We have said here that riverbank cannot be described because the natural elongation of the land, that has already died. I think we should get more legal experts, and if there is need for even for us to list the rivers we think the federal government should have control over, let us list it and legislate on those ones, because there are too many tiny rivers that communities are depending on for their daily bread, and we cannot legislate on that nationally. I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I believe he misunderstood the whole concept. If you have seen Clause 2, public trusteeship of water, you will see that Section 4, Subsection 4 and 5 are provided for that, which says states may make provisions for management, use, control of water sources occurring solely within their boundaries. Within their boundaries, but shall be guided by its policy and principle of the federal government in relation to integrated water resources management and this bill. So I believe he misunderstood the order.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Senator Benga Shafa, representing Lagos Senatorial District. The chairman, permit me to support the line of argument of the minority leader for the first time. And the reason is not too far-fetched. In Lagos right now, we are in court with NIWA based on our waterways. These are creeks sometimes that should be left to the state government to control. But what you find is that NIWA has extended its federal might in so many ways in controlling the navigation and all other things that you need to get before you can fly or do anything in all those areas. So there will be need for us to identify the rivers that belong to the federal government as well as the state, if we want to avoid any problem. I thank you, sir.
If you look at page 6, subsection 5, they said states may make provisions. No, forget, we can put it in what? States may make provisions for the management and use and the control of water resources occurring solely within the boundaries of the state, but shall be guided by the policy and the principles of the federal government in relation to integrated water resources management. and the bill. You see, the whole idea here is that the federal government is the custodian of all the water resources in the country. But of course, you know, if it is within your own area, you can use it. But of course, you'll be guided. Huh? Is federal government not owning you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and distinguished colleagues. So I think we should be more Nigerian when we want to discuss national issue instead of individual issue. So if we looked at the clause 4 and 5, which has been said earlier on, we're talking about the waterways. And we have roads that we call Trunk A Road, which is federal government road, which obviously each and every one of us here, our state is in need of some of this dilapidated road to be constructed. And if Trunk A roads are specified federal government roads, and if we looked at clause 4 of that make mention of, I think on page 6, ensure that the water resources of the nations are protected, used, developed, conserved, managed and controlled in a sustainable and equitable manner for the benefit of all persons and in accordance with the constitutional mandate. So I don't see why we will have this issue about a small river in the state that has to pass through another river in another state, and we're thinking that the federal government wants to take over. If we looked at that clause 4, it has specified it, and even the clause 5, which states the word may, we might change it to shall, make provision for the management, control, use and control of water resources accruing solely within, sir, the boundaries of the state, but shall be guided by the policies and principles of the federal government in relation to integrated water resources management. And I think that if we looked at it all now, it has covered the fears of whatever one I was saying. But to us is that federal governments have a responsibility for its citizens, and I think this is one of those things. They are managing Trunk A roads, sir. They are, sir. They are, sir. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Adiola Solomon Olamilekon, representing Lagos West Senatorial District. Mr. Chairman, already from the word go, these bills are sound controversial. And I want you to use your leadership quality and style to let us take our time before going forward to pass this bill. Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, I also have my reservation concerning this clause which we are currently considering. In relation with the submission of Senator Ashafa and our current experience in the hands of the Nigerian Inland Waterways in Lagos. As we speak, we are currently at the Court of Appeal concerning our right over our waterways in Lagos. Mr. President, we are talking about small rivers. We should not condemn it because these rivers means a lot to this state and even to this host community. And at this point in time, I believe we can set up a committee to go ahead and look into the nitty-gritty of this bill in line with the Constitution and the existing acts which we have in hand, so that we compare these two, so that we can be in unison while we consider this bill. We have done it in the past in this chamber. We should also use this medium to address all the inadequacies or controversial issues that this bill contains, so that together we can pass this bill and everybody can be happy going forward. That's my submission, Mr. President.
I think a bill like this, despite I agree my own eagerness and enthusiasm to pass it quickly, I think it's important that we carry everybody along. If we agree, we can look at the chairman of water and the vice chairman, chairman of judiciary and the vice chairman, and the director of legal, that most times they go back and look at this, especially if there are constitutional issues. Let's give them just maximum 1 week. By next week, straight after Wednesday, the 30th, they come back to us. If there's anything, two things we want them, I would like them to look at. The suggestion by Senator Binta Masi, looking at section 5, that if you change that state to shall, make provision, does that satisfy those that have concerns of powers of the states and then be able to move forward? Or do we really believe that these issues truly trample on the rights of the states? I don't think there's something that should take more than a week to resolve, and then they come back to us. If we agree, as we can move forward, and then we take their report. If we agree with that. Senator Gemadi, your thoughts?
Thank you, Mr. President. I think you are well guided on the matter. I'm not opposing that suggestion at all. I think it's reasonable. But if that small committee, some of us will not be there because I'm not vice chairman or chairman of that committee. But I have gone on a number of study tours in preparation for this water bill. And we found out that this bill is very...
You there, because the whole point is to guide us properly. There's no, the contributions we make here are not as important as the work that happens in that committee. So if nobody has any particular objections, because if you have spent time on it, join the committee, because we just want to be guided. We want to make sure that whatever we do will stand the test of time. So I would, if you have an objection, the chairman water, the vice chairman water, chairman judiciary, vice chairman, Senator Kemade, and in particularly bring in the director legal, and we give them between now and Wednesday, and clerk, please slate it on the other paper for Wednesday for consideration along with this. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, I move that the chair post progress.
Mr. Chairman, distinguished colleagues, may I second the motion that the chair reports progress? I so second.
Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, the Senate in the Committee of the Whole consider the report of the Committee on Water Resources on the National Water Resources Establishment, etc. Bill 2018. The bill is referred back to the Chairman and Vice Chairman of Committees on Water Resources and Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters, Director of Legal Services, and Senator Gemade for further legislative action to report back on Wednesday, 30th of May, 2018. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, having come this far, Mr. President, and in a day like this, I would move that we stand down the remaining items on the order paper till another legislative day. I so move.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion as moved by the leader that we stand down the other items on the order paper to another legislative day. That's also concern.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
You are on your own.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, before I move for the adjournment, let me wish all of us a very happy Democracy Day. That will be 29th May next week. And we pray that we witness the return of that date over and over and over and over and over and over again. Having said that, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I move that the Senate do adjourn till the 30th of May, that's Wednesday, 2018 at 10 a.m. prompt. I so move.
Those in favor of the motion, we hereby adjourn to Wednesday, 30th of May, 2018. Oh, okay.
Mr. President, the motion is actually not seconded. May I, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, even though there was one other issue I would have brought up, that since we are having Democracy Day on Tuesday, in our various states, flights are very difficult today, and it would have been nice for us to actually adjourn to Thursday to enable people to fly back after the Democracy Day on Wednesday. But be that as it may that he has already suggested Wednesday, I'm bound to agree with him, but I must thank you for your able leadership, because he just whispered to me now that the population explosion occurring in most of the areas with small rivers and creeks has led to a situation whereby they are now trying to expand.
Are you seconding the motion? Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that we hereby adjourn to Wednesday, the 30th of May, 2018, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate is accordingly adjourned to Wednesday, 30th May, 2018, 10 a.m. prompt.
coming here? Okay. Why not at the press center?
Purposeful moments with the legislators, they have been profounding possible solutions to the challenges facing Nigeria today. Glad to know that I'm with a distinguished senator that will be talking more on, of course, the forthcoming Children's Day. I'm talking of distinguished Senator Binta, of course. Ma, you as an advocate of children, oftentimes where I'm privileged to see you talk, and you seem to be passionate about children and, of course, Nigerians. Ma, how do you think you will facilitate these whole policies and governments of Nigeria geared towards the welfare and security of these children?
Well, thank you very much. First and foremost, I'm a mother, and every Nigerian child should be loved and cherished, and to be shown the way of life in a positive direction. And year in, year out, 27th of every May of every year is set aside to celebrate the Nigerian child. And we are being saddened by the events that has occurred or is still occurring in Nigeria, where the vulnerable group, especially the men, the children and the women, are always at the disadvantaged stage. And even with the motion that was raised today, and you could see how it stimulated debate in support and call for Nigerians and the government of Nigeria to take a stand for the welfare, well-being, and the progress of our children in terms of their health status, in terms of their educational status, and again to make life very conducive or environment very conducive for their upbringing. It's so sad to hear that Nigeria is the second largest country in the world that talked about maternal mortality rate, and which in a year a million children died consecutively, and that is not a good omen for our country, Nigeria. And again, to look at the environment where these children grow, is it very conducive? The increasing, crisis we have in this country, where children are made orphans, mothers are made widows, and with what my colleague enumerated from Zamfara, especially Senator Marafa, it opened our eyes to now understand that there is more that we are not hearing and we are not seeing, because it is not spoken out or it's not been revealed. That presently you have over 20,000 children that are orphans and 10,000 women that are widows. And the condition is unexplanatory and unpalatable. But government must come out to fight this monster, and government can't do it alone, just like one of the colleague of ours has enumerated. It is a collective responsibility of every Nigerian that when we are growing up, there is this communal discipline that a child does not belong to a single parent or a family, but it is a family, the neighbors that are parents to those children. And I think we need to bring that back on board, that every child should be disciplined in the right direction, should be corrected in the right direction, should be loved as your own child. That will give a kind of a safety net for the children to now know that, yes, they don't only have a biological parent at home, but every Nigerian out there is a father, is a mother, and that can give an enabling environment where the child can grow well. Secondly, there are laws or legislations that have been passed but have not been implemented, like when they said on the aged five from and below, the pregnant women, the people living with disability should be given a kind of a free medical care. The law is there, but the implementation is always a problem. So until we now look, we need to be one another's keeper, one another helper. And unfortunately, again, children, the rape issue was brought again on ground, that the one that we cannot, I as a mother cannot fantor or curtail, is to see a 6-month-old child that has been raped, or a 1-year-old girl that has been raped, or even a 5-year-old girl that has been raped. Then something is wrong somewhere. Like I said earlier in one of our previous discussions, was that that person must be insane for you to now look at a 6-month-old child and you want to sleep with that child. I think it calls, somebody said, I think we need to start castrating men that go through that. Which it is not, because it can be your own child tomorrow. The issue is that if it is not yours, whatever you do, if you sow a seed, definitely it will germinate. So any man that will go around sleeping with minor, I think he needs his head to be re-examined, because it is not normal, it is not proper. So I am so happy and glad that we, in some couple of days to celebrate our children, parents are coming on board now to speak in their support and to make ways and means. Like one of the amendments that was carried by Senator Remi Tinubu, where she said, well, all the senators should support in cash or in kind to those orphaned or vulnerable children of Zamfara State. And another colleague of ours from Benue made mention. So there are states that have found themselves in a very pitiable manner because of the circumstances. These innocent, vulnerable people are not part of it, and then now they've summed themselves into it. That we need to set up a trust fund for such people. I mean, child that one is being pained by losing his parent. Secondly, the environment he or she will find herself probably might not be palatable. Maybe educationally the person will be disadvantaged. But those are the kind of nitty-gritty things that we needed to put on, to nip it in the board, so that we will give every Nigerian a child the right to life, the right to education, the right to quality and affordable social services that will enhance his well-being or her well-being in the future.
Distinguished, thank you so very much. The last question is it not possible to promulgate law that would deter parents from sending their children to the streets, like the Nigerian children, especially in the north?
Yeah, the Almajiri children, that's why the federal government came in with a policy of trying to bring the formal education merged with the informal, which is the Almajiri educational system that we've seen on. But the Child's Right Act actually has taken into consideration the right of a child, especially to education and to a quality livelihood. But like right now, we have 23 states that have domesticated the Child's Right Act. 13 are predominantly from the northern part of Nigeria, which obviously we needed. The essence of the Child's Right Act is that you have to look at the status of the states where you want that act, bill to be enacted. Then you merge it into that, because I remember when we started talking about the Child's Right Act, I was in the House of Representatives, and there was an age limit when it came to about marriages, and the former minister then was trying to peg it at 18 years, and we said no. We got a lot of bashing from the clergy or from the Islamic scholar, and I told her, I say, why don't we be silent on the education? If a child goes to a school, a girl, for you to finish a secondary school, you must be between the age of 17, 18, and 19. And once, if she can get that to the senior secondary school level and she's finished, biologically, her body is ready to accept pregnancy. But when you take a child less than 18, health-wise, she's not ready to have a child. So that one we're able to knock on that, and that was how that bill was passed through. But we need to do a lot of advocacy to state government, to the Muslim Ummah, the clergymen, and to civil society. This cannot be only on legislators alone. It is all encompassing, that everyone that has the welfare and well-being, and unfortunately even we parents, mothers that would take children from other families because of their economic status, and instead of us to show love to such a child or to such children, we try to even make life more miserable for them. Because I cannot see why you can take a child and give that child a corporal punishment, deny the child the essence of education and even the conducive atmosphere to do. So I'm one person that is against the issue of a maid in the house. And even if you have a maid, it's not by her own right that she wanted to be a maid. It's not by the right of the parents to send her children to be maids somewhere, but it's because of the economic condition that they found themselves in. But instead of us to show them love, at the end of the day, we made them to look as if they are slaves. They are doing us a favor. But we invariably have forgotten that these are the same maids who will leave our children in their hands. So like I said earlier on, it's the seed that you plant that you will reap. So if we show a seed of kindness, invariably that child that will live in those people's hands, they will show kindness to our children. But if we do the reverse, definitely we will have something that will be shocking not only to the family but to the community that we found ourselves in. So the child's right is there. We only crave the indulgence of the law enforcement agencies and even our judiciary to follow the law, and whoever that is caught guilty, let the law of the land have its course on such a person.
It's been a very beautiful moment with you. Thank you so very much, ma'am. We've been having a very good moment with Distinguished Senator Binta Masigaba Adamawa, representing Adamawa North. We do hope you have a very beautiful moment with us next time. But before you go, remember that unity is strength. When we are divided, then we are victims of disaster. Let's please stay united. Until we meet you again next time.